Disclaimer: this episode is an educational documentary based on publicly available official records, declassified documents, congressional materials, and cited media sources. We do not claim new findings, accuse any person or organization, or encourage hatred, harassment, or harm. Some historical events remain debated or disputed. We present them only as documented in the cited sources. Welcome to American Power Series. This is where we open the files, follow the money, question the official story, and look at the moments when American power moved in the dark. And today, I want you to imagine something. You wake up one morning feeling normal. You walk into a meeting or a bar or a hospital room. You drink something. And suddenly, your own mind does not feel like yours anymore. Now here is the uncomfortable question. What if that was not an accident? What if someone was testing you? And what if the people behind it worked for the United States government? That is the story of MKUltra, a real CIA program confirmed in Senate hearings built around one chilling question. Could the human mind be controlled? Stay with me because the strangest part is not just what they did. It is what disappeared when investigators started asking questions. So before we judge the program, we have to ask the first question. Why would America even start something like this? The answer begins in the early Cold War. The United States was not just worried about missiles, spies, and nuclear war. It was worried about the battlefield inside the human mind. Officials feared that rival powers might have found ways to break prisoners, extract secrets, or reshape loyalty. After the Korean War, stories about brainwashing entered American culture. Some prisoners of war made statements that shocked the public, and intelligence officials wanted to know whether drugs or psychological pressure could change what a person believed. So here is the logic they used. If enemies might be studying mind control, America had to study it too. But that is where national security can become dangerous. Because once you say, we have to know, the next question becomes, how far are we willing to go? In 1953, the CIA approved Project MKUltra. On paper, it was research. In practice, it became one of the darkest confirmed intelligence scandals in modern American history. Now let's answer the obvious question. What did MKUltra actually do? It was not one single experiment in one secret room. It was a network. According to the 1977 Senate hearing record, MKUltra funded subprojects through universities, hospitals, prisons, research foundations, and other institutions. Some researchers knew where the money came from. Some did not. Some subjects gave consent. Others never got that chance. And one substance kept showing up again and again. LSD. At the time, LSD was still poorly understood. To intelligence officials, that made it interesting. It could disorient people. It could produce hallucinations. It could weaken someone's grip on reality. The CIA wanted to know whether drugs like that could help with interrogation, covert operations, or psychological warfare. But here is the part that should stop you for a second. The record shows that unwitting people were sometimes dosed. Unwitting means they did not know. So ask yourself this. How would you even report what happened if you had no idea you had been drugged? That is what makes MKUltra so disturbing. It was not only a secret program. It was a program that could turn an ordinary person into an experiment without giving them the basic dignity of consent. And this is where the story stops being abstract. Because programs do not hurt subjects. They hurt people. One of the most haunting names connected to MKUltra is Frank Olson. Olson was a scientist who worked with the U.S. Army's biological warfare laboratories. In 1953, during a retreat with CIA personnel, Olson was secretly dosed with LSD. Days later, he fell from a hotel window in New York City and died. The exact circumstances of his death remain disputed. And I want to be very clear, this episode is not here to pretend every theory is proven. But the confirmed part is already chilling. A government-linked scientist was unknowingly drugged. Within days, he was dead. Now pause on that. If that was the only fact we had, it would already deserve a full investigation. But MKUltra was bigger than one case. It was a system. And systems are harder to expose because they do not look like one crime scene. They look like budgets, memos, approvals, front organizations, and quiet signatures on paper. Now here comes the question that keeps MKUltra alive in American culture. If this program was real, why do we still know so little about it? The answer is simple, and it is infuriating. Many of the records were destroyed. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered many MKUltra files destroyed. That means when Congress later investigated the program, the investigators were not walking into a clean archive. They were walking into a story with missing pages. Names were gone. Details were gone. Approvals were gone. The most sensitive explanations may have been gone before the public ever knew what to ask. Imagine trying to solve a fire after someone removed the ashes. That is why MKUltra is so powerful as a story. Not because every rumor about it is true, but because the confirmed record already contains secrecy, human experimentation, destroyed files, and unanswered questions. But then something survived. And this is the twist. The CIA destroyed many operational records, but not every trace of the program disappeared. In 1977, records connected to MKUltra were found through financial paperwork. Not dramatic spy files. Not a perfect confession. Money records. Vouchers. Approvals. Accounting documents. And those boring pieces of paper mattered because they proved the program had a structure. They helped bring the story into Senate hearings, where Americans learned that the CIA had funded behavior control research through a web of institutions. So here is the answer to the question from the beginning. Was MKUltra real? Yes. Was every theory about MKUltra proven? No. But did the US government run a secret program involving drugs, psychological research, and experiments that sometimes lacked informed consent? The official record says yes. And that is more than enough. So why does this story still bother people decades later? Because MKUltra is not just about LSD. It is about trust. Most scandals are about money, elections, war, or lies. This one was about the mind, the private space inside a human being. And once a government crosses that line, the damage does not end when the program ends. It changes what people believe is possible. If secret experiments happened once, people start asking, what else happened? Sometimes that question leads to accountability. Sometimes it leads to paranoia. And MKUltra sits right in the middle of that uncomfortable space. Confirmed history on one side, cultural nightmare on the other. That is why we have to handle it carefully. The goal is not to believe everything. The goal is to follow the record, respect the victims, and understand how power protects itself when nobody is watching. The darkest part of MKUltra may not be the drugs. It may not be the code name. It may not even be the destroyed files. The darkest part is the moral calculation underneath it. Someone decided national security could justify experiments on human minds. Someone decided secrecy mattered more than consent. Someone decided the people inside the experiment were less important than the questions the experiment might answer. And when the questions became dangerous, someone decided the records should disappear. That is the lesson of MKUltra. Power does not always look like a speech, a flag, or a president standing behind a podium. Sometimes power is a file cabinet. Sometimes it is a budget line. Sometimes it is a memo that says yes before the public even knows a question exists. And when power operates in the dark, the people who pay the price may never know they were chosen. This was American Power Series. If you stayed this far, you now know why MKUltra is not just a conspiracy keyword. It is a documented warning about secrecy, fear, and what institutions can justify when they believe the stakes are high enough. In the next episode, we open the FBI files behind COINTELPRO, the domestic operation that targeted political groups inside the United States and was later criticized for crossing constitutional lines. And the question for next time is this: what happens when a government agency decides that watching Americans is not enough? What happens when it decides to disrupt them,